Good morning, everyone. Hope you're well. Hope you're doing alright. Guys, I'm buying Euro USD. Basically, anytime that I find an opportunity to buy the euro against the dollar, I go ahead and do it. And therefore, today is one of those days. You can see this morning I've written about a lot of different instruments. I've written about the pound, I've written about the Japanese yen, I've written about Australia, I've written about Canada, I've written about Bitcoin and gold. However, unfortunately, I couldn't find a trade on all of these different instruments that made headlines today. And I found a trade for Euro USD, and therefore I'm not going to FOMO into these other instruments. I'm actually going to go ahead and just simply buy Euro USD, which is the instrument in which I have a trade on. Now, when it comes to Euro USD and my fundamental analysis for Euro USD, it is astonishing for me that the euro has been melting against the dollar for a while now. I don't believe that the euro is weaker than the US dollar. We can see the euro, they have the lowest unemployment rate. Their unemployment rate is almost at all-time lows. And when it comes to their inflation is around that 2% mark. And therefore they're doing well by all metrics. And then you look at the US dollar, you look at the USA, they have the highest unemployment rate in 4 years. They have a high inflation rate in the 3% mark. And therefore, by all metrics, they are doing a lot worse than the euro. And even if we look at more macro metrics and more fiscal metrics, we see that the USA has a very big debt, more than what European countries have. And they have a very big budget deficit as well. And therefore, by all metrics, is the euro doing better than the US dollar at this point? So whenever I find an opportunity to buy the euro against the US dollar, I just go ahead and do it. And today is one of those days. Now, previously, we've had the euro melting against the dollar, as you guys can see right here. That was due to French political uncertainty right there that just melted the euro down. But this uncertainty in French politics has been recently resolved. I previously spoke about that, whether it's on X or in one of the videos that I have recorded. And therefore, I am no longer bearish for the euro, as I don't see this political uncertainty unfolding anymore. And therefore, I am bullish for the euro. All right, as simple as that. Now, let's analyze different metrics, algorithmic metrics, technical metrics, to see what's happening right now for the euro. Now, let's start with algorithmic metrics. On the TET Capital Report, which is an algorithm that I developed that gives me the bias for 32 instruments, actually 33 since we start with 0 right here. Euro USD is neutral from an investor horizon, it is bullish from a swing horizon, and it is neutral from a day trading horizon. And therefore, if we add up these outputs right here, we receive that we are bullish for Euro USD on the swing horizon, and therefore that's a good algorithmic indicator right here that we can go ahead and buy Euro USD. That's number one. When we go and look at the technicals from a visual perspective, we see that right here, first of all, let's start with the lower time frames. Let's start with the execution right here. We see that on the 30 minutes time frame, the market melted down right there. It created these lows, and then the market took out these lows through to the downside and started impulsing with momentum, with volume, through to the upside right here. And therefore, that's a bullish signal as market started pushing through to the upside. The market then created another set of lows, took it out, and then also started pushing through to the upside with volume right here, which is another bullish signal for Euro USD. Now, when we look at this area right here in which the market is wicking through, we can see a huge resistance line. Look at this. A huge resistance line right there, where stop losses are being clustered above it, since people trade support and resistance, and therefore they would be selling this resistance line right there anytime that it is touched. And you can see there's a lot of touches of that resistance line, and therefore lots of stop losses being clustered above this area right here. So I'm simply buying Euro USD right there after these liquidations through to the downside and targeting this area through to the upside, this stop loss area through to the upside. I'm mainly targeting, as you guys can see, this high right here, which would hold a lot of liquidity, a lot of stop losses through to the upside. And therefore, I'm targeting that high. As simple as that when it comes to Euro USD. Now we can go to higher time frames and basically analyze what's happening right here for EURUSD as well. And what I can see here is that the market has been melting down for a while now. And as it has been melting down, it created multiple cluster of lows. And these cluster of lows have been grabbed through to the downside as the market is pushing down. With the most recent grab being this push through to the downside right here, we can see that the market created this cluster of lows right here. And then we pushed down into it, liquidated it, and then guess what we did? We pushed with volume right there through to the upside, also creating a bullish signal from a swing horizon perspective, from a higher time frame perspective. Now on top of all of this, I see that right here we had this cluster of lows right there, and it was grabbed, and then the market pushed with volume through to the upside right there, creating this volume area right here that the market has finally tapped, and now it's starting to reverse from it. So as you guys can see, all technical and algorithmic metrics tell us that EURUSD needs to go through to the upside, and therefore I'm buying EURUSD right now through to the upside into this cluster of highs. Let's see how that goes. There we go, guys. As you can see, EURUSD made it all the way up into the stop loss area right here. It liquidated the stop loss area and then started retracing slightly through to the downside. That's the position right here, as you guys can see. Now the lesson today, the main lesson today, is to not get excited and FOMO into instruments that made headlines. That's it. We can read the headlines, we can be aware of the fundamental aspect of the charts. We can be very sure, for example, that Bitcoin needs to go up because the tensions between China and the USA are easing. But for example, we might not find a trade on Bitcoin, and therefore, even though we're excited, even though we're confident about this analysis, we need to leave it alone because we have no setup there and go towards a more boring instrument that is not making headlines and trade that, because this is where we have an active setup that we can trade. That's the lesson for today, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.